Okay, continuing on. Again, still with message construction. It's important, if you're looking at slide 13 right now, it talks about powerful versus powerless forms of speech. And on page 13 of your book, there's just a slew of different possibilities here. It's important that if a person is sounding confident, that we do not sound like we're not confident. So if the person, like, those kinds of things, it's very crucial that if that person is not using those types of hesitations or those types of things, that you are not conveying them that way. This becomes really critical in situations where a person is giving a speech, or even in a speech class, or those types of things. Very often I need to talk to the speech teacher ahead of time, and if they are videoing the deaf student doing their presentation, I will sometimes do a consecutive interpretation. I will have read the student's speech ahead of time. At times, if I do a simultaneous speech with them, I will go back and tell the teacher how many of the uhs or ums or those types of things I thought were my own and how many of them were really in the presentation itself. And so it becomes very difficult. You really need to know, again, what is the goal of the environment? What is the goal of that teacher in that particular environment? Is the goal that the student has good content, or is it in the delivery? And if it's in the delivery, then I need to ensure that I'm up to par, that I'm really doing what that person needs for me to be doing for them. Also, it's important not to use qualifiers if you don't feel that person is using them. So, I'm sort of tired. Either you are tired or you're not, unless that person said, I'm sort of tired. It depends. If they're using that, then you definitely want to voice it that way, or vice versa, sign it that way. But you need to ensure that that's really what the person is saying. So, look through that. In your book it talks about hedges, hesitations, intensifiers, polite forms, tag questions, and uptalk, and disclaimers. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because the materials that came with your book are very clear about these things, but if you have any questions, then make sure to post about it or to ask me. Next, we're going to talk about responsible language. Responsible language is when you're talking about who is saying something. Like when someone says, it bothers me when you pay for me. Okay, well, does it bother you or do you bother me? I don't know. Anyway, that gets kind of confusing. But it, again, becomes very difficult in sign language to differentiate, okay, what is bothering you exactly? And so sometimes you really need to be very specific when you're using I, you, and it statements. And you have to be careful because whoever's taking responsibility, it can offend the person depending upon how things are voiced or signed. And so you want to make sure that you're really on target when you're doing those kinds of things. One of the first fears that I have when people start to get into an argument is, did I cause this? Was it my fault? And I probably tend to take too much of that on myself. I probably err on the side of thinking it was a problem in the interpretation, but you know what? Sometimes people just yell at each other, and there's not much you can do about it. I had a deaf friend, oh my gosh, I always tell you guys stories. I have a deaf friend who, before I was even a certified interpreter, she was so frustrated. I had no idea what was going on. She came into the cafeteria and she said, come with me. And so I followed her, idiot that I am, and we went into the dean's office. The dean wasn't there. And she went to her professor's office, and she just railed on him in sign language. Again, I'm like an ASL 1 student, okay? So she's just railing on him in sign language, and I'm doing the best I can to keep up with her, and I can't believe that you did this to me, and how dare you? And I don't even know what the situation is she's talking about. And she's just yelling at him, and then she storms off. Well, guess what? I'm still voicing, and I'm left in the room with this guy. I have no idea who he is or why she's upset with him. I just know that she's yelling at him. And so I'm still yelling at him, and I won't take that, and I'm going to talk to your boss, and blah, 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 blah. Have a nice day. Thanks. You know, because I'm just such a softie that I can't stand yelling at people. And so, It was really funny. What had happened was, now my deaf friend, she was in his class for the second semester. She had taken his class the prior semester, failed it, but decided to take him again because she knew how he tested and such. And he was just sick of having a deaf person in his class. Straight up, he admitted to that. And so the first day when she walked in with her interpreters, he told the interpreters, "You're going to the back of the room. I'm tired of this distraction. I don't want any of this sign language crap in the front of the room. You guys go back there." And so I can't blame her for being upset, really. And so the interpreter told her that's what the guy said. And my deaf friend was like, no, I'm telling my interpreter she needs to be at the front of the room so I can see the equations that you're putting on the board. That's not realistic for us to be sitting in the back of the room. And he's like, if you don't like it, you can get out. And so they went back and forth, and finally my deaf friend left with the interpreters. And it was funny because even some of the hearing students from the class had already gone to the dean's office and told them how irrational the teacher had been and just how rude he had been to the deaf student. And so that was a good thing. But, whew, crazy situation. But, you know, I want to make sure that in that argument I am truly conveying what each person is saying and where is the blame being placed. So responsible language, very important. The last thing that we're going to touch on is register, and I'm going to do a separate video on that just because that can be really, really intense. So I guess that's it for this one. Thanks.